Karen let hunters onto my ranch. They shot my son's mini horse, then faced my full fury. I remember the day it all broke. The air was still, the dust was high, and my son Jonah's laughter was the only thing alive in the dead Texas heat. We just finished mending the north fence line. Jonah, barely 9, had taken to riding Bella, our family's beloved miniature horse, every morning before homeschool. That mare was no bigger than a Great Dane, but to Jonah, she was a stallion. I'm Aaron Reyes, former firefighter, widower, and father of one extraordinary little boy. After losing my wife in a highway pileup 6 years ago, I moved Jonah out to these 70 acres in Cedar Creek to give us both a life where we could breathe again. Just us, the land, and the slow rhythm of recovery. It worked until Karen Delaney moved in next door. She arrived like a storm wrapped in silk expensive sunglasses, pearl white SUV, and a voice so sweet it made your ears bleed. "Hi there," she chirped on our first meeting, clipboard in hand. "I'm president of the Cedar Creek Trails Preservation Alliance, our new HOA. I blinked. I wasn't aware we had one. "Oh, it's new," she said, brushing invisible lint from her cardigan. "We're revitalizing the area, promoting access, preserving value, and yes, standardizing land use." "You mean on your property?" "Oh no, sweetie, on the block, including your ranch." I tried to keep it civil, told her my property wasn't part of any HOA. My deed was clean, isolated parcel, fenced and surveyed. She just smiled. "Everyone's part of the community eventually." She said, that's when I knew she was dangerous. It started small. Notes on my gate, complaints about livestock odor, offensive fencing, and inappropriate outdoor equipment, her words for my hay bales and generator. Then came the drone. One morning, I spotted it buzzing overhead white, blinking red. It hovered low enough to spook the goats, then zipped back to Karen's porch. She'd posted the footage online with hashtags like Jark Blight Patrol and Reclaiming Cedar Creek. Then came the trail signs, overnight. She staked laminated signs along the far border of my land community access corridor, as voted by Cedar Creek HOA. I tore them down, called the sheriff, got a bored shrug in return. "She's a busybody," he said. "It's not illegal unless she crosses the line physically." I should have reinforced the fence then. I should have pushed harder, but I didn't. I trusted that someone that smug wouldn't be stupid enough to open a locked gate. I was wrong. It happened just after dawn. Jonah was out back brushing Bella when I heard the first gunshot. Not a hunting rifle, but close enough. The second shot was louder. Then Jonah's scream tore through the house. I sprinted outside. Bella lay in the tall grass, blood soaking into the earth. Her tiny frame jerked once, then stilled. Jonah was screaming, body curled against her side. 3 men in camo were standing nearby, guns slack in their arms. One of them looked at me and said, "We thought it was a coyote. It ran fast." I lost it. "You shot a child's horse," I shouted, grabbing Jonah and shielding him. Karen came strolling up from the trail, clipboard in hand. "They were invited," she said, unbothered. We opened the wildlife corridor this morning. For seasonal game access, I couldn't breathe. I was shaking. That gate was locked. Correction, it was obstructed, she sniffed. "And we have every right under the Cedar Creek Wildlife Bylaws. Section 2.4. There is no Section 2.4. There will be," she said. I told her to get off my land. She refused. I called the sheriff again. This time, even he looked shaken. Took statements, took photos, but Karen had pre-printed permission slips, allegedly signed by landowners, including my name. The signature wasn't mine. Jonah sobbed himself to sleep that night in my bed. Bella was buried behind the barn, under the cottonwood tree where my wife's ashes rested, and I made a vow Karen wouldn't steal one more thing from this family. Bella's grave was still fresh when the first community notice hit my mailbox. Typed, laminated, smelling faintly of lavender. Cedar Creek Trails. HOA is extending its wildlife integration pilot through all contiguous lots. We ask residents to cooperate fully in facilitating managed access to public game quarters. Property barriers inconsistent with HOA standards may be subject to violation review. I read it 3 times, each word more surreal than the last. She doubled down. Jonah hadn't spoken a word in 2 days. I kept finding him out at the fence line, sitting cross-legged by Bella's grave, his hands tucked into his sleeves like he was trying to disappear into himself. It broke something in me. I'd spent years helping him rebuild after losing his mom, and now this smug HOA imposter had shattered what peace we had left. I wasn't going to let that stand. I called the sheriff's office again, demanded an investigation into the shooting. Deputy Calhoun met me halfway. Ballistics confirmed the mini horse wasn't mistaken, he said grimly. It was close range. Those hunters didn't shoot by accident, and we can't arrest anyone unless we prove criminal intent or trespass. Karen claims the trail was open. Says she filed jurisdiction through the Cedar Creek Trails HOA. There is no Cedar Creek Trails HOA. That's what I want you to prove. So I did. First stop, the county clerk's office. I walked in with boots still dusted from the pasture and a folder full of every letter Karen had ever left on my gate. Hi, I need to confirm whether any HOA named Cedar Creek Trails has filed incorporation, zoning rights, or anything that lets them operate as a governing body. The clerk, Janice, a quiet woman with big glasses and no tolerance for nonsense, tapped a few keys, then looked up. There's no such HOA registered for this area, she said. No civic organization, no land authority filings, and no trail access petitions granted in the last 10 years. What about land use designations, public corridor rights? She shook her head. Your property is zoned rural private, full rights, no easements. Any interference is trespassing. Bingo. I asked for printed confirmation, notarized copies of the zoning maps, and an affidavit to boot. She handed them over with a knowing smile. Is this about Karen Delaney? I froze. You know her. She tried the same thing on 2 lots down by Fox Hollow last year. Claimed the right to fine someone for putting up wind chimes? I blinked. And what happened? They filed a harassment complaint. She backed off. But then she bought the parcel next to yours. Been quiet until now, I guess. Quiet like a tick on your neck. I took the paperwork and drove straight to the local law firm I knew from my fire department days. Asked for Terrence Grady Vietnam, vet turned land lawyer with a handshake like barbed wire. He read the documents in silence, then leaned back. She's running a fake HOA scam, he said. Classic grift. Build a paper community through flyers, fake votes, and phony violations. Intimidate neighbors. Get them to comply or move? How is that legal? It isn't, but it's a civil matter. You want to stop her. You file an injunction. You want justice. You go public. Public. You hit her where it hurts her credibility. These types thrive on illusion. You break the illusion, the structure collapses. That night, I made a decision. If she wanted war, I'd give her fire. I gathered every piece of paper she'd ever left on my gate, took high-res photos of the forged signature from the hunter permission slips, and opened a Facebook page, Cedar Creek Doesn't Comply. I posted photos of Bella's grave, Jonah's broken smile, the bullet casings, the broken gate. Then I posted Karen Delaney is not the president of anything. Cedar Creek Trails HOA does not exist. My land is private. My son's horse was killed because she let armed strangers onto our ranch. This isn't governance. It's trespass. And we're done being quiet. By morning, the post had over 18,000 shares. By noon, a local news van pulled into my driveway. By 3 p.m., Karen posted a shaky phone video from her porch. Certain neighbors are spreading misinformation about community efforts. She sniffed. I've acted under full civic authority to promote harmony and ecological renewal. She was cut off mid-sentence by a loud move from behind her, the camera accidentally catching one of my cows chewing on one of her laminated signs through the broken fence. It became a meme overnight, cattle reject Karen. But I didn't laugh. Not yet, because then the threats started. 3 nights later, I heard movement by the barn. I grabbed my flashlight and shotgun and found Bryce Delaney Karen's son pouring something onto my hay bales. Gasoline. He froze when the light hit him, eyes wide and twitching. "You don't belong here," he screamed. "We're the community. You're just a squatter with a sob story." I fired a warning shot into the dirt near his feet. He dropped the gas can and ran. The sheriff took him in, charged him with attempted arson. Karen posted bail, but the damage was done. She'd crossed into criminal now. No more fake notices, no more smiley gate visits. She was unraveling, and still she refused to apologize. Instead, she hosted a community BBQ 2 days later in her front yard, which now faced a completely rebuilt, steel-reinforced fence that I'd had installed with donation funds. Nobody came. She sat there alone, surrounded by untouched hot dogs and plastic chairs, sipping from a white wine tumbler labeled "One Ho President." The next morning, I found a new sign jammed into my driveway. "You'll never keep us out. This land deserves better than you." I called Terrence. "We're not filing just an injunction anymore." I said, "We're filing a lawsuit. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but sometimes it takes a village to stop a tyrant in yoga pants with a clipboard." Karen Delaney had gotten bold. Too bold. The attempted arson charge against her son should have humbled her, but it didn't. If anything, she ramped up the crazy. She began sending out newsletters again, now branded with a new header, Cedar Creek Revival Authority. Official subdivision notice, I swear. If she slapped one more buzzword onto a piece of printer paper, I was going to choke on it. The kicker, she claimed she'd restructured the HOA under new bylaws and retroactively annexed surrounding parcels, including mine. Her claim, since I failed to participate in local beautification efforts, my land was in default integration status. Translation: she thought she could take it by willpower and staplers alone, but I'd had enough. The only thing Karen was about to inherit was the legal reckoning I was assembling. Brick by brick. Terrence filed the lawsuit officially. Reyes v. Delaney et al. Grounds harassment, criminal negligence, trespassing, fraud, and forgery of property permissions. I also filed for a restraining order on behalf of myself and Jonah. And then I called in help, not lawyers, not deputies, not even the press. I called the ranchers, people like Edna Mills, who had chickens poisoned in 17 by a rogue beautification inspector, or Louise Cartwright, whose antique tractor was towed for aesthetic violations. They'd all kept quiet, embarrassed, worn down by Karen's phony rules and fake HOA threats. But now, thanks to my Facebook page and local coverage, they were mad, really mad. We formed a group, Land Truth Alliance. Our mission: expose fake HOA abuse and help folks like me fight back. Within 2 weeks, we had 70 members, a retired judge as an advisor, and a list of every parcel Karen had tried to claim authority over. And best of all, one of our members, a woman named Renee, who used to serve on a real HOA board, found something explosive: a recording. 3 months prior, Karen had been caught on a Zoom call with a real estate investor from Austin, pitching a rural reclamation package for what she called underutilized legacy land with emotionally fatigued owners. In the recording, she said, and I quote, "We just need to put pressure on the holdouts. They'll fold eventually. They're sentimental, not strategic. Holdouts." She meant me. We took the recording straight to the news. That's when it all began to unravel. Linda Torres, the same reporter who'd covered my neighbor's HOA scam the year before, picked up the story like a hound on a hot trail. She aired a primetime expose, Fake Authority, Real Damage: How One Woman Weaponized HOA Power to Claim a Child's Ranch. The piece showed drone footage of Bella's grave, Karen's fake newsletters, the arson attempt, and the Zoom clip. It went viral in 24 hours. Karen tried to post a rebuttal, called it media persecution and anti-organization hysteria. She even claimed Bella had been an illegal livestock specimen under zoning code 18B. Twitter didn't let her live that one down. But what she didn't know, the state had started watching. The Texas Attorney General's office, already knee-deep in HOA fraud cases, saw my lawsuit, saw the footage, and quietly launched a formal inquiry. Karen had overstepped, and the state smelled blood. Within days, they froze the Cedar Creek Revival Authority's fake bank account and subpoenaed her communications. Turns out she wasn't just running a fake HOA, she'd also collected nearly $18,000 in dues from scared neighbors. And there it was, wire fraud. I should have felt triumphant, but I did not when I looked at Jonah. My boy still didn't ride. He still visited Bella's grave every week, brushing imaginary knots out of the air, whispering to the dirt. That's when I knew this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about healing. So I built something. Behind the barn, under the cottonwood tree where we buried Bella, I built a little fence. White pickets, Jonah's favorite. Inside it, a wooden plaque, Bella's Rest, a place for all gentle creatures. I invited the neighbors, the ranchers, the kids from the local school. We held a small ceremony. Jonah stood beside me the whole time, quiet but proud. He wore his boots and her saddle blanket over one shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. "Will the hunters go to jail?" he asked me after the crowd had gone. "Maybe," I said, "but they won't come back. That's for sure." He nodded. "Good." Bella wasn't just a horse. No, son, she was family. Karen was arrested 2 weeks later. The final charge, racketeering and fraud. Turns out she'd registered her fake HOA in 3 other counties under different names. Her empire of paper, signatures, and scare tactics collapsed like a bad souffle. As they led her away in cuffs, she shouted, "You're all ungrateful. I tried to bring order. I was the community." No one clapped. No one cried. Not even Bryce, who'd quietly sold the family SUV and disappeared. The day they tore down Karen's fake HOA patrol sign, the whole town showed up. It wasn't planned. It just happened. One minute, I was tightening barbed wire at the southern line. The next, Edna Mills rolled up in her pickup with a pry bar in hand. Then Louise showed with bolt cutters. Then Renee brought muffins and her 2 grandsons, who painted over the faded HOA enforced area stencils with big X's in barn red. It was like watching a fever break. The grip Karen had on the neighborhood, the fear, the threats, the laminated notices vanished with every creaking nail pulled from a fence post. That sign came down with a groan, and we burned it in a steel drum behind the feed shed. Nobody said much. We didn't have to. With Karen behind bars and her so-called Cedar Creek Revival Authority declared legally null and void, people began to breathe again. No more phony dues. No more strangers knocking with fake inspection forms. No more threats about aesthetic violations for having a clothesline or a goat. Even the sheriff's department showed up this time to apologize. "I should have taken it seriously earlier," Deputy Calhoun admitted, staring at Bella's plaque beneath the cottonwood. "We thought she was just one of those HOA types. Never imagined she'd be this dangerous." I shrugged. "You see enough of these folks, and you forget the quiet ones can get loud too." He nodded slowly. "What are you going to do now?" I looked at the land. My land. Wounds still healing, but still standing. I rebuild. Better. Safer. And I make sure this never happens again to anyone. That started with education. I partnered with a few other ranchers and community leaders to host Know Your Land Rights seminars at the county hall. We taught people how to read zoning maps, verify HOA registration, and fight fraudulent claims. Turns out, we weren't alone. A man from Waco showed up with a story eerily like mine. His kids' rabbits confiscated by a fake HOA in 2022. A woman from Bastrop shared how someone fined her $600 for planting unapproved shrubs. There were dozens of stories, some worse. That's when the state took notice. A legislative aide from Austin visited one of our meetings and took pages of notes. A month later, a draft bill appeared. The Reyes Act named, embarrassingly, after me. It mandated HOA entities must be registered and verified with the state. Property owners must receive notarized confirmation before any annexation or policy enforcement. Fake governance would carry criminal penalties, including jail time and restitution. It passed with bipartisan support. Turns out HOA fraud affects conservatives, liberals, landowners, and renters alike. Justice, when rooted in truth, has a way of uniting people. As for Jonah, he finally started smiling again. It began with little things, helping me rebuild the fence, running with the goats, drawing plans for a Bella 2 treehouse barn. One day, out of nowhere, he looked up and said, "I'm ready." Ready for what? To ride again. That afternoon, we drove to a rescue farm just north of Bastrop. There, in the shade of a tall oak, stood a new miniature horse, a sandy palomino, with curious eyes and a stubborn streak. Jonah walked up slowly, offered his hand. "She's nosy," the caretaker warned. "Mouthy, too," Jonah smiled. "Just like Bella." He named her Star. A week later, the Land Truth Alliance held its first statewide summit. I was the keynote speaker, which still feels ridiculous even now. I'm a rancher, not a politician. But I told my story plainly. How many of us live quietly until someone tries to rewrite the rules under us? How many of us give in because we think fighting is too hard? I looked around the packed room, hundreds of landowners, farmers, teachers, parents. Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to surrender your fence line to someone else's fantasy of control. This land doesn't answer to fear. It answers to roots, to truth, to the lives built on it. You fight not just for what's yours, but for the kid who just lost his horse, the widow who just wants to grow her sunflowers, the grandfather who can't afford another violation notice. The room stood up when I finished. That night, I drove home with Jonah asleep in the seat beside me and Star quietly munching hay in the trailer hitched behind us. We passed the tree where we buried Bella. The wind moved through it gently. I didn't feel anger anymore, just peace. Then came the letter. One crisp October morning, a beige envelope arrived in the mailbox, no return address. Inside, a folded piece of hotel stationery, neatly printed. "Aaron, I've had time to think. Jail gives you that. I truly believed I was helping this community. I thought order was the same as peace. But you were right. And I'm sorry. I understand if you don't believe me. Please tell your son I never meant to hurt him. Karen Delaney." I read it twice, then again. Then I set it gently in the fireplace. I didn't need vengeance. I didn't need revenge. The fire took it from there. Jonah wrote again under a lavender sky. It was the first real Texas spring we'd had in a long while, cool breeze, bees in the sagebrush, and new wildflowers cropping up like hope from scorched soil. Star trotted beneath him, high-stepping through the grass like she knew exactly whose heart she was carrying. And I walked behind them quietly, letting the rhythm of hooves and laughter stitch up the final seams of a broken season. Karen was gone now. Not just jailed, gone. Her house foreclosed. The fake HOA dissolved. Her name scrubbed from every legal record that ever tried to bind my land to her delusion. Her downfall had echoed far beyond Cedar Creek. The Reyes Act passed unanimously in both chambers. 2 counties filed class action suits against other fake HOA founders. A Dallas news anchor called it a rural reckoning for paper tyrants. But that wasn't the part that mattered. What mattered was this: Jonah wasn't afraid anymore. People still came by, some to shake my hand, some to share stories of their own run-ins with small-town authoritarians, petty tyrants hiding behind neighborhood bylaws. Some even offered money to help build a memorial shelter for displaced animals, in Bella's name. But we didn't need the money. We needed connection. So we did something better. We turned the back field, the place where Bella fell into something new. Bella's Walk. It wasn't fancy. Just a quiet trail through mesquite and shade trees, with white markers carved by neighbors, each one bearing a name or a memory rusty, loyal to the last. Clover, the one-eyed goat who loved Pop-Tarts. Our little ranch dog, Jessie, 2004-2019. It became sacred. Families came. Classrooms came. Even the sheriff came with tears in his eyes and left a collar on the fence post. We hosted the first Cedar Creek Truth and Trails Festival that spring. No permits, no gatekeeping, just stories, music, food, and healing. Jonah gave a speech. He stood on a hay bale, microphone too big for his hands, hat tipped low, voice shaky but proud. My horse Bella wasn't just a horse. She was my friend. Someone took her away because they wanted power more than peace. But I learned something. You can't fence off a heart with fake rules. You can't write control on paper and call it law. You can't silence good people forever. He paused. The whole crowd, hundreds, was silent. Then he said, "We didn't just stop her. We made this place better. And I think Bella would like that." He stepped down to a standing ovation. I've never cried so quietly in my life. Later that summer, I received a letter from a school in Kansas. A teacher there had shown her class the local news coverage of our story, used it to teach about civic responsibility and legal rights. Enclosed in the envelope were drawings from her fifth-grade class, stick figure horses, tiny barns, little kids holding protest signs that said things like, "My land, my say, and say nay to fake HOAs. They even made a paper medal for Jonah, for bravery in the saddle. He wore it to bed. As for Karen, we never saw her again. She served time. Not much. 18 months for wire fraud, 6 more under probation. I heard she moved to Arizona after release, changed her last name, took a job organizing silent meditation retreats. Irony's got a sharp edge. But I meant what I said. I didn't want revenge. What I wanted was restoration, and I got it. The land has a way of remembering. It remembers hands that nurture. It remembers the weight of grief. It remembers false fences, broken gates, and cries in the dust. But it also remembers when justice stands tall, when a child dares to hope again, when a community wakes up and says, "Not here, not anymore." One quiet morning, long after the crowds and cameras faded, Jonah and I sat under the cottonwood. He looked up and asked, "Will people ever try to take our land again?" "Maybe," I said. "People like power, and paper gives them ideas. But what if we can't stop them?" Next time I rested a hand on his shoulder. "Then we remember what this land taught us." "What's that?" "That truth doesn't need permission, that fences can be rebuilt, and that this ranch, our ranch, doesn't answer to fear." He nodded slowly. Then he whispered something that caught in my throat. "This land fought back, Dad, and it won." Have you ever experienced someone trying to claim power they didn't earn through rules, lies, or force? Have you seen a community stand up or stay silent? What would you do if your peace was threatened by a false authority? Tell your story, speak your truth, and remember, fences don't make a community. People do. Let's talk. What is justice to you? What does it cost to defend what's yours? What kind of world are we building one clipboard at a time?